Now, all right, good afternoon. We are here to welcome our afternoon C-suite panel for the ElevateIT TOLA Technology Summit. Topic today is Connected Communities, Transforming the Enterprise for the Evolution of Smart Cities, Counties, and Airports. I'm Casey Yarbrough with Elevate Events. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Patrick Benoit, the Global BISO for CBRE. Patrick is going to take over and introduce the rest of our panelists and kind of get us kicked off here.
Great. Thank you very much, Casey, and welcome everybody. This is a great set of panelists that we have here. To start out with a couple of logistical items. One is, as you have questions, please make sure you use the Q&A option on your screen to submit those questions. And we'll get those answered throughout the course of the session by various panelists as we go. And also, please keep in the room, stay in the room after the session. There's going to be a drawing, and you probably don't want to miss that because you might be that lucky winner. So let's go ahead and do that. So to get started, let's talk about the topic real quick here. You know, globally, there are lots of urban areas that are just growing at incredible rates that, you know, we've never seen before. That's urban and suburban, but primarily urban. And as the cities continue to condense and get more people and so forth, the need for automation and smart cities becomes, you know, more and more prevalent. Cities want to improve the service they're giving to their customers, their citizens. They want to improve the performance and quality, the interactivity of the services, and all of these things lead you to governance, you know, having to be smarter and act more efficiently with respect to technology. So building a smart city is a real balance, though. It's balancing an entrepreneurial spirit to be on the cutting edge, while at the same time making sure that you have, you know, clearly structured services that are available to everybody and that are always available when needed, so that you're not living on the front end of technology and causing outages for people. So with that, I'm going to ask our panelists today, distinguished panelists no less, to take a moment and introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the meat of the topic here. So Sonia Bridges, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Assistant Vice President of Application Development and Delivery Services at DFW Airport within the IT department.
Very nice. Mr. Michael Anderson, how about you, sir?
Yes, thank you so much, Pat. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Anderson. I serve as the Chief Information Security Officer for Dallas County, and our constituents consist of 2.6 million taxpayers.
Very nice. Mr. Eric Yancey.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm the Information Security Officer for the city of Irving, Texas, which is about 250,000 citizens. And ironically here, it's located right next to Sonia's DFW Airport and in Dallas County. Our demographic actually includes both a lot of large corporations, Fortune 100 company corporate headquarters, as well as a significant number of, as you said, the urban area. So smart city initiatives are used specifically to attract those businesses, as well as support our citizens to make their lives, I guess, easier, smarter, and more efficient.
All right, very nice. I appreciate that. And welcome to all of you, and thank you for providing your time and your wisdom to everybody here. So let's get started. Can you take a moment and kind of get us set on, you know, pick one or two of your smart projects for your smart city type projects, and give us kind of an overview of that so that we can understand what we're talking about here. Michael, would you like to start us out?
Sure. So one of the projects that we have under consideration at the moment is Next Gen CCTV. Each of you will probably already know, as well as our guests, that there are some inherent limitations with other fixed based systems and fixed base cameras. And one of the ones that we're fighting the most, or the limitations we're fighting the most, are around distance, fast motion, focus, and zoom. And so we have evidence today that these newer breed of cameras will give us the ability to overcome some of these limitations, which is at the absolute core of why we're initiating this project.
Perfect, Michael. And that kind of led us into the specific goals that you're trying to achieve. Did you have any more specific detail on goals and why this was a priority, the costs and benefits?
Yes, absolutely. So today we have, Dallas County is spread out over close to a little over 900 square miles. And we have closed structures and we have open structures. And in the open structures, we're able to secure those because they are, for the most part, obstacle free. But in our closed structures, you think about public stairwells, you think about parking garages, underground common areas. There's a lot of places for people who are acting untoward to duck and hide and get out of the camera's lens. We believe that with this initiative and with some of the evidence that we've seen with these newer breed of cameras, that the 4 elements that I made mention of, distance, fast motion, focus, and zoom, we're able to overcome those. And so for some of the folks who have been slipping through our fingers as a result of these limitations, that will no longer be the case.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Eric, what do you have going on in the city of Irving?
Well, actually, there's been an ongoing program in the city called Irving Connects, which had a mission statement of using technology to improve the safety of our community, improve our services, and that has been going on for some years. And we've had various projects that supported it. But when I came in, I think one of the COVID-19 has really kind of adjusted our focus. One of the biggest events that we had to achieve is to actually use technology to enable our city council meetings. And I know that may not sound grandiose, but it's extremely important to maintain operations and improve the safety of our community as they want to be involved in, and we have legal obligations to provide an open platform, but we also have to take in consideration some of the, the things that we need to do for the safety. So over the last several months, that has been really a primary focus, and we've been able to do some of the very interesting, unique things related to that, allowing for our city council members to be remote, but still our citizens to be able to comment and participate as they are legally able to, but they're also remote. But we have to have security such that we're not getting, what they called, I'll call it an interruption, right, into the environment. So those, as I said, it may not sound, like huge robotic automation, but there are significant advances that we needed to do in a short period of time to make sure that our city was prepared to support our citizens. And that was one of the challenges that we were addressed, and I believe we successfully overcame in the last several months. So that was certainly something that, it wasn't planned, but because we had the infrastructure, we've been planning on it with the Irving Connects to allow for these, smaller projects. We were able to expand that fairly quickly without having to do a huge, significant disruption. And I would only like to also add to the guests, just to realize that there are things that you can do proactively that will prevent significant disruptions in the future. Something as simple as preventative maintenance. If you have certain preventative maintenance measures in place, then you're not having to dispatch, people, right, in the COVID environment, because you're not having to react. You can more proactively go out and do things. And so that was very important to us as well. By maintaining a good infrastructure change control process, I think that allowed us to create the ability to be successful.
Very, very nice. It always seems to come back to basics in many ways. Sonia, what about you?
So the last couple of years, the airport, we've been defining a digital strategy, and we just formed a committee to manage and advise the airport on the best way to implement and execute the strategy. One of the projects we implemented a few years ago allows us to do wayfinding for parking. So if you've ever been to the airport, you're able to find empty parking spots. And so we took that technology or similar technology, and we're creating or just rolled out smart restrooms in all of our terminals. So now you're able to find the right bathroom that's closest to you. It's very visible from wherever you are in the terminal. And then once you get in the bathroom, we've made a lot of the assets within the bathroom smart. So that one of the challenges of smart restrooms or restrooms is that, you know, we want to keep it as clean as possible. With the number of passengers we have coming through there, that's been a challenge. So with the smart restroom, we'll get notifications when there are issues. The passengers will know what available resources we have there. We'll know when we're out of paper towels or soap. So now the bathrooms are smart. That's been about a $2.6 million initiative. And we're very excited about it because the parking has been well received. So we believe the restrooms will also be.
That's awesome. It seems like such a simple thing. It's I'm not sure how I feel about smart bathrooms though, but we'll
Well, it's funny. I'm flashing to Cars 2, where Mater was in the bathroom pushing the buttons. If you have grandkids or kids, you know what I'm talking about.
So let's go on to something, another question, and delve a little deeper into your projects. So I'm going to ask that each of you tell us about kind of the architecture and platforms and interconnectedness. You know, what kind of IoT, OT devices might be involved in the project that you're dealing with. Eric, how about you?
Well, as I said, one of the things that we are focusing in on right now is supporting critical services to our citizens while trying to mitigate some of the exposures that we have to the COVID. And, you know, we have certainly longer strategic goals related to smart cities. As I said in the beginning, you know, attracting corporate, you know, offices and providing a infrastructure to support them. But what I'd like to talk about today is those technologies that we have that we've implemented in order to support not only our citizens, but our staff. So at City Hall, we had it's basically looks like a bank tube to pay our water bills, right? So citizens can drive up to a drive-through, they can put their payment in and do that. You know, again, this is something that we've already invested in, but it allows for that contactless payment. We also allow for, you know, online submittal of, you know, support for inspections and some of these other things that the citizens need to have. We also had, and there's been a lot of talk lately about remote workers. So, you know, there are certainly a demographic right now that previously did not need to work from home, but now are working remotely. So by having the VPN resources, the encryption, and those, again, it comes down to the basics. And as long as you have those core methodologies in place, expanding them to support these unknowns, because as a security professional, you know, it's not those things that keep me up on a late night. It's those things that hit you blindsided, like on a Friday afternoon, that, you know, you don't really expect but have to prepare for. And so I think the Corona certainly is a good example of that, where we didn't have to suddenly bring up a VPN solution. We had that in place, but we also had to expand it out to people, you know, in parks and rec and libraries and things that these employees were not normally, you know, expected to work from home. So those technologies were in place. The other thing that we really, you know, had to kind of rethink was this, and I don't want to do one particular, you know, vendor, but we had this remote solution for our council meetings, right? So, you know, how do you bring up a solution that is used typically internal to the city and expand it out to allow for citizens to be able to connect in? And so those type of technologies were certainly, again, we had them in place. They were for a specific purpose, but then having to rethink and also repurpose them to expand them out. And do it a kind of enclosure is security professionals, in my opinion, don't ask, what should this do, right? So, what should this solution technology do? They think of it as what can it do? And by having that hacker mentality, we are able to, protect solutions, right? People are like, well, certainly they wouldn't put a special character into the name field because it says first name. Well, no, it's not what should it, what can it do? So having that mentality in a broader sense allows us to say, what should Zoom do? Zoom should be secure and inside an environment. Well, what can it do? It can be expanded so that a citizen sitting at their house, 5 miles away can connect in securely without having a Zoom bomb. And so how do they share presentations that they're going to show to the city council for a zoning request, but we don't want that virus or that malware to introduce themselves into City Hall? Again, what can these things do versus should? And I think that mentality and the absolute support of our leadership team, city council within the city really set us up for foundation success. And so that can be translated into your, your participants in this conference is taking a look at what you have, getting support for it, rethink, revisit, because money doesn't flow when there's this pandemic. So how do you get scrappy? Grab the duct tape and some baling twine and have at it. So that's what we really were at, and I was very happy to see all the minds come together. That Apollo 13 kind of show where everybody was like, okay, you have to make this look like this, and this is what you have. Certainly was real here at the city of Irving.
Very, very nice. Sonia, so again, what kind of architecture, platform changes, IT, IoT, OT kinds of devices are coming into play with smart bathrooms or whatever else you're working on?
Right. So very similar to Eric, we are doing extending what we have. We're trying to be very scrappy, very smart, but we're also focusing on governance. We're looking at the categories that we're trying to implement. We have 5 categories. So we have intelligent infrastructure, we have the customer journey, we have digital platform, how we work, which is kind of the internal aspects of automation, and then stakeholder needs, where we have partners with other airlines. So our approach varies based on our category. We're taking what we have, we're extending it, we're adding governance, we're ensuring that we are securing it properly and that we are focused on getting the data and the KPIs from it. So it really does vary based on focus, but we are trying to go best of breed so that we can really simplify the extension that we're having, right? So we're extending like intelligent infrastructure. A lot of our infrastructure, we have partners that we have implemented the infrastructure with. So we're taking the sensors that are located on that device, and we're ensuring that it's going through a strict assessment so that we can govern it and ensure that it is secure at all times. So it really does depend on the focus and the availability of the technology within that device.
Okay, very nice. So I'm hearing a common theme in extending what we have, making best use of what we have, and that makes perfect sense. Mike, how about you guys? What are you doing on the platform and IoT, OT, area?
Yeah, so this one doesn't seem to have the same sort of breadth and depth as my panel colleagues. However, we do have a number of options, and there are closed systems that we could utilize for this particular endeavor. But I think most practitioners would have some sort of reservation with the use of closed systems exclusively, especially as Sonia so keenly mentioned that when you have a framework, when you have governance models that you have to adhere to, it's probably not the best decision for a solution like ours. In our case, we've opted to go with an open architecture solution. It is, in fact, IoT. It talks a variety of different IP protocols. It has a cloud-based backend where all of the traditional things that you would expect to see are taking place through a portal, the administration and setup, alerting, backup, and management, where management also includes system updates of firmware, patching, etc. And so in keeping with the company or our organization's security framework, NIST 853, we always have these IoT devices ride on a separate segment that does not interface with the county network, the county business network. And so that's what we've got going with respect to architecture, Pat.
All right, great. So you mentioned the cloud environment versus an on-prem environment, and so I'm gonna drop a couple more or a few more overly used buzzwords and kind of get your impression of how it may fit into this whole smart city, smart device approach. Are you seeing or using any ML or AI or any RPA type processes? Are you seeing that come more into what's happening in the world, your world? Sonia?
Absolutely. We're very excited about, every buzzword that you've thrown out. One of the initiatives that is underway now would be digital twin. We are trying to use machine learning and AI to help us with our what ifs, right? And so we also are exploring, we have an application that is used internally for basically how we work. And it has RPA on it. So we're starting to find use cases in which we want to explore how RPA can work. But from a digital twin perspective, the basis of that will allow us to take what we learn from AI and to automate that through and do some machine learning and continue to grow. But it's going to be one of our future initiatives that will really govern how we roll out new apps, new systems across the airport.
Very nice. Mike, how about you?
Most absolutely, ML and deep learning for sure. No RPA in this particular implementation. So the next gen CCTV solution leveraged some pretty advanced algorithms to help with the design of the new body, where the big emphasis there was on commercial use, durability, longevity, and then obviously safely housing all of the components inside of the camera, along with, I believe, IP68, 69, whatever one is the most aggressive. The actual one escapes me. So that's one implementation where the algos and deep learning were used, but I mentioned 4 specific areas that we were really trying to get our arms around in a current solution where they somewhat failed us on numerous occasions, and that was the distance, the fast movement, the focus, and the zoom. And so it is here where the algorithms have really made up for the delta between these next gen cameras and the current fixed-based cameras that are in the marketplace. The hardware on the inside isn't so different, but it's literally the algorithms that are getting the absolute most out of those components. And so I think the last 2 areas that we are really excited about where AI plays a role in ML is within the heat signature and the heat identification on a particular subject. The sort of colored orange yellow blob looks radically different in these new systems, almost down where you can see a heartbeat. And so it's pretty phenomenal technology. And it also inherently, because of the other features that got corrected, those core four, the extended night vision capability is phenomenal. And it's not like anything that we typically see today.
Wow, that sounds really impressive. So, Eric, what's your take on the buzzwords?
Well, first, I'm glad you said it, buzzwords. If you ask three people what machine learning and artificial intelligence is, you'll get five answers. So first I would, ask to, what does that mean to you, kind of thing, right? So there's actually several ways I wanted to answer that question. One, within Irving, one of the great examples that support our citizens, we participate in a website called 511 DFW. And what it does is it allows for a lot of different pieces of information to come together. And what this means is a citizen, or anyone for that matter, can go in and see construction, delays, potholes that have been submitted through Waze, and all that information comes together so that we can better, get that traffic flow. And that may sound, okay, there's frustration and, for somebody trying to get to work, but what does that mean for an environmental impact? What does that mean for resource allocation? What does that mean for lost dollars and time? What does that mean for attracting businesses? So those ability to take a lot of different disparate pieces of information, consolidate them into a cockpit so that we can initiate, repair, traffic light, repair, potholes, and we can also manage construction and all those type of things together. And so, from a citizen's perspective, it's neat, right? Traffic, because frustration, road rage, right? We are right there in the middle of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport and Dallas. And so there's a lot of through traffic. People tend to drive through the Irving area more so than, go in and stop. So how do we make sure that that traffic is flowing? We also have to understand that highways are part of our critical infrastructure. Should there have to be a exit from the city for some type of environmental issue, right? Whether it's a tornado or a hurricane or weather event, we need to make sure that our infrastructure is able to support it. So that's a good kind of example of how we, in combination with several other municipalities and counties, are participating together to make machine learning work for our citizens. Internal to the city, we recognize that most internet traffic right now is not based on humans. It is computer to computer. It is a system to system. So trying to protect an environment with human kind of methodologies or interactions it's going to be a lose. So we're using several pieces of information within the city to use deep learning, machine learning, to an artificial intelligence, again, buzzwords, to be able to respond and proactively isolate and quarantine systems to understand behavior. If an employee is VPN'd in at their home and suddenly their badge is being used within the city, that should trigger something, right? That doesn't seem logical. That's not, and I think there's a lot of good information that is, good technologies that are being used to really mature that. It's been going on for some time. We call it SOAR, right? Orchestration. But I think it's now coming to a maturity that makes it really usable. And one last thing I need to kind of tail on to what Mike was talking about. So we're getting all this information, but we have to understand that there are these acceptable use policies and these confidentialities that we have as a city. We are legally obligated to only use the information that we obtain from a citizen for the use that it was intended. And as much as we have in the city 26 different departments, and we receive information from one department, it's really nice to see if we can enhance the citizens' experiences by transferring that data within the city and maybe use it to promote a certain event going on. Well, can you do that? GDPR is very specific about it. And although we don't have, we are a United States city, we got to be responsible for those European citizens that have a speeding ticket when they're in the city. They are still having those protections. We can't just say, well, if you're international, we're not going to give you a speeding ticket because that information we ingest can't be used for other purposes. So certainly we have a lot of different variables that we have to understand about the data we collect. Temperatures, great for contact tracing, great for understanding the infection rate of COVID. But that temperature, we can't store that HIPAA information and then share it with other entities. So those are challenges that we're having to deal with about not only getting the data, utilizing it effectively for what we want it for, but making sure that it's only being used in the way that it was meant to be used and protect it even from internal kind of customers. So that, marketing certainly wants to use the data. Well, you can't because it was given for this purpose. And so if you want to, you have to adjust and notify your citizens that it's going to be used for something else. So there are those challenges are cities, but I think that a lot of your corporate participants are going to have to deal with that same information as they deal with COVID and this information glut, machine learning, and actually what happens when you can create information that is more accurate than the information you can obtain from outside by doing true artificial intelligence, right? So you actually evoke or create this data to see the citizen and what they're going to do, and predictive models that say this person could be doing this. And unfortunately, it's like 80-90% accurate at this point. So is that data now something that needs protected at the same level as PII?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It comes back to this idea that privacy underlies everything nowadays, especially since we're dealing with end users. And just because we can do something doesn't necessarily mean that we should or must or in any way like that. Well, very good. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about have these kind of smart initiatives in any way changed your requirements for how you look for talent and people to help you build these new things out? Eric?
Well, for the city and as an information security professional, it really hasn't changed the core of what I'm looking for. And let me indicate that information security is not a technology problem, right? It's a people problem. And so when I look for talent, I'm looking for some soft skills that can't be trained. So whether it's, the widget of the day or the month is green or blue is irrelevant to me. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, that great. That's today's, buzzword. Tomorrow it'll be, synergies or whatever they want to throw out. When I interview, I ask several questions. Like first, explain your lab. Now, if a security professional can't explain, okay, I use, a bunch of Raspberry Pis and Kali and all these other things, I have to really question their passion. Because if you get into information security because, you think you're going to be liked, or because it's a great gig that's a 4-hour day job, you're just not going to, it's going to work for you, right? So I'm looking for tenacity, curiosity. I'm looking for those soft skills. And so when it comes right down to it, Patrick, those things don't change, and when, again, I came back to the hacker mentality. If somebody can tell me, innovative, out of the box reasoning and how to approach a problem, in a different way, then that person in place is going to be able to handle such a broad, technology. You can learn that. You can go on to, Linda or any other online, resource and go in and learn about, different things, but you can't, it's very difficult to train somebody on, and there's been so many examples of breaches that the only reason why they were known is because one person just got, the spidey sense and said, I'm going to dive down into this. Although all my metrics and all my resources are saying everything's fine, just something's not right. That's the person I want. So the technologies don't really drive it. I think that if you maintain and be true to the core about what a security professional, in my opinion, should be, I think you're able to handle a lot more than if you hire somebody that says, okay, that you need to be a CISSP, right? That's your thing. Great, but does that person have the qualities that I'm looking for? No, I'm a CISSP. I love the credential. I'm not downing. I'm just saying that there are some people who, that they're more, I would say, prescriptive than they are, kind of broad.
Okay, very nice. Sonia, what do you think?
Totally agree. From an IT perspective, absolutely on point. We I don't really anticipate changing what we're looking for, because that's exactly what we're looking for, right? People who are curious, people who want to understand the next technology, because there's always a next technology. And so that's exactly who we hire today. Now, what I do see changing from an enterprise perspective would be the business side of it, right? So the business will have to adopt and utilize more and more technology. Technology is, it's kind of like a spider web, right? It is blending into everything that we do. And, what you're used to is no longer going to carry you to the future. So one of our, I guess, pillars of our program will be to change the culture of the airport. We have a lot of interest in technology today, but it's going to grow. And we need people who are interested in growing with it on the business side. I think within IT, it's just kind of innate, right? We are very comfortable with that. We will continue to be comfortable, but the business has to grow also and be very comfortable with the cloud technologies and everything that goes with it.
Great. Mike, what do you think?
It's a very touchy topic for me. So I'm going to give you two bullets. The first one with respect to just talent in DFW, those that desire to be practitioners at whatever level, at whatever discipline within the security space. They are very difficult to find. And one of the biggest challenges that I face during recruitment is this. I don't get to pay as much as the private sector does. So I get somebody on the call, we do an initial, we have to do an in-person, and then we can start the paperwork. Paperwork takes about 4 weeks. By the time I hit step one, they're already off the market. So, just looking at that particular dilemma, it's pretty significant. And I don't know to the extent that Eric faces this at the city level, but I've heard a lot of my other county brethren and sisters suggest that, yeah, it makes recruitment incredibly tough. The fact that our pay scale is a little bit different than the mainstream. Now, specifically for this initiative, we don't foresee any challenges. We can utilize a talent that we already have to deal with this solution. It includes about 4 to 8 hours of hands-on instruction that's instructor-led, And so we would anticipate that shortly after the introduction to the portal, how all of the different modules work together, that a person who has a reasonable technical background could be fairly comfortable doing all of the administrative tasks that would inherently come with a solution like this.
Very nice, very nice.
If I may, Patrick, I would like to just address what Mike said. He brought up an extremely valuable point and how it ties back. Yes, Mike, that is very hard for us because of the two primary purposes. One, I come from 20 years of experience in the private sector. I've only been in the public sector for about going on a year and 9 months. And so it is new to me. And definitely the cadence is extremely slow and frustrating when you do have a talent deficit in the security. So that is definitely, and another thing is, yes, we're in the same boat. We're a government agency, so what we have is the pay scales and certainly a lot of oversight. But if you take a look at it, here's another thing that it's actually beautiful. It in itself becomes a gate to find the talent that you want. And let me explain this. Again, if you're information security because you want to be liked, you're probably in the wrong profession. If you work at in a city, a municipality, or in the government space because you want to make a lot of money, you're in the wrong space. But for me, I have 250,000 people whose in lives depend on it, right? We have fresh water that, you know, the difference between clean drinking water and poison is, you know, is a chemical ratio. We have 911, fire, police, libraries, you know, civic, all these things. For me to come to work and make an impact like I could where nowhere else, right? To actually impact day-to-day lives. That's passionate. That is, I mean, I love it. It gets me and drives me. It really does. So if an employee is able to say, yeah, I'm going to take a $10,000 a year pay cut. I'm going to also know that this is in 4 weeks. Congratulations, right? 2 months of a bludgeoning to get hired. Once that person gets hired, you're going to have somebody who is passionate, right? Who doesn't just want a paycheck, who is going to take a go and above beyond. And by the way, you know, they're going to pay for their own training if necessary because they want to learn. They're innovative. So I think, Mike, you're absolutely right. We have those same challenges, but I do try to take a good positive spin on it and say, you know, what better way to screen out those people that may, you know, just simply looking for a paycheck? Because yes, if you're there, you're not going to be successful at a government or certainly in the city of Irving. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that in, Mike, because I think it really does play into what we're talking about related to talent.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. Let's talk a little bit about, we're getting near the end of the session here, but a couple more questions. One, tell us what you or how you're measuring success for these kinds of initiatives. You know, what's the criteria you're using to understand that you've A, completed, and B, you've been successful? Sonia.
We use several metrics. At the top of our metric chain is going to be customer satisfaction. We do surveys. We participate in a couple of airport-centric organizations that measure customer sat. And to us, to the airport, that is number one. We want our customers who are absolutely passengers, right? We consider the traveling public our customer. We want them to have moments of wow. And so we measure how well they like the products and services that we offer.
Okay, very nice. Mike.
Yeah, so for us, if you talk about the goal, I mentioned early on that we had some folks who had a little too much time doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And because of those 4 limitations, they were slipping through our fingers. So what we need or what we've adopted as a goal for this is real world capability that creates a positive identification each time. The success criteria we feel is somewhat binary, and I'm sure within the officers, within the sheriff's department, there's metrics. I wouldn't necessarily track those, but I could see for sure if we're able to, through this next gen CCTV upgrade, if we're able to get exactly what we think we're going to get from the evidence we've seen heretofore, they should be able to radically change those numbers to the positive.
Very nice. Eric.
Well, as I said, I've only been with the city for, you know, a very short period of time, but they brought me in to actually create a formal information security program at the city. Even though it was, and I wouldn't call it ad hoc or distributed, it wasn't a formal, you know, entity. So in that, I am developing, you know, metrics, tying them back into the different business processes to make sure that they're relevant, meaningful, and able to be, you know, basically improved upon. One of the things that I noticed, and this was, you know, we had the impact of a bunch of cities within the Texas that were impacted by ransomware, and there were certainly some other cities that were impacted. So one of the critical things that I had to address really early on was phishing emails, because that's the primary vector for these ransomware attacks. And so one of the critical metrics that I use within my department is how basically the testing emails that we send out, what is the click rate? So how susceptible are my internal customers to being, you know, basically tricked into clicking these emails? I will tell you, I did a baseline without any training just to see, and it was extremely concerning. It was very high, and one would be expected, right? Because there was no training. So with Texas House Bill 3834, it requires all city employees and elected officials to take mandatory cybersecurity training. With that baseline, I was able to actually track how that training that we did initiate and that we did complete, for the state mandate, but also just for best practices, our click rate now is extremely low. I'm very happy. Of course, the other side of that is now, every, training email that gets out from our training department, or, basically valid, city communications, they all click that this is a phishing email. So I become now the world's biggest spam filter, as it would be. But hey, I tell them, I said, I'd rather, be wrong, but false positives are okay, because we have to be right 100% of the time. A hacker only has to be right once. And when you start talking about intelligence and smart cities and smart things, having a police vehicle bricked is just not a good day, right? And one of the challenges we have is that, yes, you have manual processes that can be, from a DR perspective, but a lot of our, our police academies, they're not training a lot on how to do a trifold, ticket. It's all about computers and automation. So when we fall back to these manual processes, unless you're doing, a very rigorous training, on those manual processes, they can become forgotten and so forth. So one of the critical metrics, again, and it might be grandiose and not be, it would be sexy, but it's extremely important for me, is how susceptible are my employees to these phishing attacks? And that the ransomware right now, to me, is the biggest, most significant threat. And that I can see a real tangible causation of, by reducing that, I improve the security, not only of the city, but also of the support for our citizens.
Very nice. So we're running near the end of our time. So in an effort to make sure that we stay on time and everything, let me give you all a chance to make any closing remarks you'd like to make with respect to our topic at hand, which was this connected community idea and how we're transforming the enterprise with, smart cities, counties, and airports. Mike, start us off, please. Closing remarks.
Sure. I just want to thank ElevateIT first for having me on as a panelist. I take very, very seriously these opportunities to share with the audience, to share with my colleagues. And so my hat's off to ElevateIT for sponsoring this. Pat, I also want to thank you for facilitating, and I want to take special consideration and thanks for Ms. Sonia and for Eric, my good friend over at the City of Irving. Just a fantastic topic today. I think there was a great deal of meat for anyone of varying levels throughout this particular talk. And to the extent that we all embrace all of the acronyms and do something meaningful with them, I think that will be the point where we're able to separate from, are they truly just acronyms, or are they making a change in our day-to-day lives, and are they adding value? Thanks so much, Pat.
Thank you, Mike. Eric.
Thank you. And I do need to echo Mike's comments, and thank you, and also ElevateIT. One of the things I would just say, kind of homework from an information security perspective, is balancing what your internal customers want to do with the data and enhancing the user experience, by protecting it and making sure that you are become a trusted consultant, so that they're not out doing these things thinking they're doing good, but then suddenly, there's a AWS E2 bucket that's been exposed, right? Those type of things. So Sonia had mentioned this, but being a consultant, not a roadblock, is extremely important. So I would just say in closing that, as a security professional, as an IT professional, get out and understand your businesses, understand their needs, and become a trusted consultant. So they come to you not as a bolt-on at the end of a project, but actually designing security in place so that you can actually help them to make sure the technology they're going to use to enhance the experience. And the other thing is, we have to balance between, functionality and scary. You know, when you talk about machine learning and these artificial intelligence, you know, when I go on and I make a mention of, hey, we'd like to buy something, and suddenly my, you know, my Chrome ads are popping up that exact same thing I talked about, I'm starting to scary, right? Where they're thinking, hey, we're enhancing Eric's experience. To me, I'm just like, okay, how did my privacy get breached? So as we have these initiatives within a company, within a city, we want to enhance the technology to meet the business needs. We have to get in front of it. We have to balance between that scary, but versus the true business needs. And I will tell you, if you're a no person, a roadblock, they're just going around you, right? The shadow IT. So get engaged, be approachable, and make sure that you're there in the processes to make sure that the security is embedded, not bolt on.
Great. Sonia.
So again, I will echo what everyone said. This has been a wonderful event. I appreciate being invited. It's always wonderful to talk with peers and to share with peers. As far as smart cities, you know, we're in a moment, right? We're in a moment where we realize how easily things can get shut down or morphed or need to transform overnight. And so because of that, being smarter about everything that we do is even more critical. So what is Smart City to the airport? It is really about creating an environment where we are at the most efficient and that we never lose sight of what our customers' needs are. We're focused on those needs, whether they are internal, whether they are partners, or whether they are passengers. How can we ensure that our passengers, our employees have the best information at the right time and is trusted? And so we believe the next level is being smart about it, you know, using technology, leveraging technology, and ensuring that everyone has the skills and the understanding of how to get there. So we're very excited about this next level opportunity.
Super, very, very nice, and all just, you know, very, very valuable points that were made today in the panel. I think hopefully as I feel smarter, all the attendees feel smarter for having listened to it. And I want to again thank you, Sonia, Mike, Eric, for your time and for participating in this. It was a really good event, and I was happy to be a part of it. And thank you to Casey Yarbrough, ElevateIT, and everything that's gone into putting this together. And Casey, back to you.
Well, thank you everybody for participating. It was a pleasure having you on today. For our attendees in the audience, please definitely stick around here in Tech Theater 1. We will be announcing our grand prizes here shortly, and as well as the vendor prizes. If you have any additional questions for you know, Patrick, Sonia, Michael, or Eric, definitely put those in the Q&A section below. We'll have a few moments here after everybody signs off to continually you know, get those questions answered, and before we kick off our prize announcements. So thank you everybody once again for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on, and we look forward to seeing everybody at the prize announcements and next year's events. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.